Hi, I'm Kathleen. I'm a 3L law student, teacher, and LSAT tutor. I help students, especially those who learn differently, to break the LSAT into clear, teachable strategies. In today's video, we're going to discuss reading comprehension. All right, let's dive in. What is reading comprehension on the LSAT? So, the LSAT reading comprehension selection includes four passages, each with 5 to 8 questions. One of the passages is a dual passage, which means you're comparing two viewpoints. You get 35 minutes total, about 8 to 9 minutes per passage. The content is typically about law, humanities, science, or social science. The key skills that are tested is the main idea or purpose. What's the author trying to do or say? The tone or attitude. Is the author neutral, critical, excited, or skeptical? Inference or assumptions. What logically follows from the text, even if not directly stated? And specific detail or line reference. What does line 12 to 15 mean, and what's the context? Comparative reasoning is the dual passages one, which how does author A and author B agree or disagree? So those are kind of a synopsis, a 101, if you will, of what we're looking at. The step-by-step strategy for reading comprehension is first you're going to preview the question. So this gives your brain something to look for as you read. Then you're going to chunk the passage. We're going to do something called mapping in this. But you're going to chunk the passage and use a highlighter or draw lines after each paragraph. Write 3 to 5, no more. Like the fewer words, better, but word per summary on each one. And then you're going to tag the structure. So as you go through the paragraph, is it background, argument, an example, an objection? Then we're going to look for keywords. We're circling keywords like however, although, some, critics, on the other hand, mostly importantly, things that might identify that then what the author is trying to highlight here is a critical spot. Then we're going to this says make a mental map, but I think initially you're actually going to draw the map. At least that's how I train my students, is to actually map it out on the side of the paragraph or the side of the argument, the paper. You're going to kind of map through it. Is where does the author give key points, examples, or shift opinion? And what are the important parts of this? So answer questions by type. And do factual ones first, according to the passage. Then do the harder ones like inference and tone. Reading comprehension question types. So this is we just referenced that in the last step. So this is something that's important that you're able to identify. And in our tutoring classes, we really focus on making sure we really do entire lessons just on identifying each of these so that you get really great at knowing what question type you're dealing with. So the main point or primary purpose is one type. Ask what the whole passage is about or why the author wrote it. The author's attitude or tone. Ask how the author feels about the topic. Are they supportive? Are they skeptical or neutral on it? Specific reference details, such as ask something about explicitly stated on a specific part of the passage, often with line references. How to identify question types. Inference. Ask what is suggested but not directly stated. Students must read between the lines, what's being inferred or assumed. The function role of a sentence or a paragraph. Ask why a certain sentence or paragraph is included in the structure of the argument or the narrative. An organizational or passage structure. Ask about how the author organized the passage or the purpose of each paragraph. So this is how we identify our different question types. Analogy or application. Ask how students to apply the logic of the passage to a new context or situation. Author's technique or method. Ask how the author argues or supports their ideas. Examples, comparisons, and analogies. Comparative reading or argument disagreement. Ask how the two authors in dual passages agree or differ. Comparative reading perspective focus. So these ask how focus or tone differs between two passages. So you read two separate passages and then you look at the comparison. We have some specific tools that we use in our tutoring to help you really know how to do these questions effectively, and which paragraph to read first. So the meaning of a word or a phrase in context, ask what specific word or phrase means used in the passage, and then strengthening and weakening, rare but possible. They do ask what would support or challenge something stated in this passage. So these are the different types of questions, and in the LINK tutoring package, we break those down further so it's easy for you to identify those and know what the LSAT is looking for when they give you your testing on those styles of questions. So this is going to let us do a little bit of a deeper dive into the most common question types. So let's dive into the more commonly asked LSAT reading comprehension question types. These are the ones that show up most frequently and are worth spending extra time on in your course. So let's break them down. What the question is really asking, how to spot it, what are the common traps that they use, and what are the examples of how it's asked, and what strategies can you use to answer them? A main point or a primary purpose question. So what is it asking? It wants the central idea of the entire passage, the big picture, but not the details. How to spot it? What's the main point of the passage? That might be your question. Which of the following best expresses the author's central idea? The primary purpose of the passage is to. Common traps in this case are answer choices that are too narrow or only about one paragraph, answers that are factually incorrect but not the main idea, are factually correct but not the main idea, or extreme language where it goes way, too off on the other left side for that. Okay, strategy. Read the first and last paragraphs carefully. The first usually introduces the topic, and the last gives you your takeaway. All right, another one is our author's attitude and tone. So, what is it asking? This tests your ability to read between the lines and understand how the author feels about the topic. How to spot it? The author's tone can best be described as which of the following best describe the author's attitude towards? Common traps that we find, answers that are too extreme or emotional, and confusing neutral explanations for positive or negative tone. The strategy, look for emotionally charged words or phrases and ask, is the author critical, neutral, or skeptical? Inference questions, how to spot them. Okay, what are they asking first? This tests what must be true based on the passage, even if it's not directly stated. So, similarly to assumption questions for logical reasoning, inference questions are looking for what did the author imply that didn't get said? So, how to spot them? Which of the following is most strongly supported by the passage? The author implies that. It can be inferred that. Common traps, choosing answers that go beyond the passage, mixing up opinion with fact, and choosing answers that are tempting but not required by the text. Strategy, stick to what's clearly supported. If you need to assume something to make it work, then it's wrong. Specific detail or lookup, what it's asking. Find what's stated explicitly in the passage. How to spot them? According to the passage states that, usually referenced in a line number or paragraph. The common traps, misquoting the text, giving you similar wording but wrong meaning. The strategy, go back and find the line, read a few lines before and after for context, and do not rely on your memory. For function or purpose of a sentence or paragraph, what it's asking, why is a specific line, sentence, or paragraph there? How to spot it? What is the primary function of the second paragraph? The author most likely mentions X in order to. Common traps that we find are confusing the paragraph says with why it's there. Answer choices that summarize the paragraph but don't explain its role. Strategy, ask yourself, how would the passage be different if this part were removed? All right, comparative reading agreement and disagreement. What they're asking, what the two passages agree or disagree on, how to spot them. Both authors would agree that the authors of passage A and passage B disagree about. Common traps are mixing up which passage says what, choosing ideas that one author didn't mention. The strategy, make a quick T-chart with what each passage says and feels. Look for overlap or tension. Meaning and context or vocabulary. What it's asking, what does a specific word or phrase mean in the context of the passage? How to spot it? As used in line 24, tenuous means nearly, most nearly means. In the context, the word charge refers to. Common traps, choosing the most common dictionary meaning, ignoring how the word is used in that sentence. Strategy, reread the sentence and insert your own word, then compare it to the answer choices. All right, so I'm going to break here because this is our YouTube, and usually in our lessons, we definitely go, a little bit more in depth, but this is to give you a sample of what our tutoring offers. So if this tip helped you, I'd love for you to join us for more. We definitely dive a lot deeper and practice these and break down questions. Also, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next LSAT strategy that I post here on YouTube. And check out the free study notes and free resources that we offer. I've put together these resources for you. The links are in the description. And join us for our next video because we will go into the next steps for reading comprehension. Don't forget to subscribe.